Hi, today I'm going to be talking about some corrections from exam number 2. I'm going to be going over the questions 1 through 5. So for this first word problem, I integrated incorrectly and I forgot to apply the chain rule for part A. And I also was confused on units and interpreting what it meant in parts B and D. And then for part C, I accidentally left out a number. I got it confused with finding the derivative. So I thought it was a constant and I could just ignore it. So I got confused there. So for part A, I properly found P of 6 with the right units and then elaborated that in part B. And then in part C, I took into account the 5 that I took out and then I solved for that and then elaborated the right units. For question 2, I just made an error in finding my f of y, and for f of x, I forgot that the square root means it's plus or minus, so I would have 2 different critical points. And then for f of y, I made an error dividing it. So to properly solve this, I went back and refound f of y and my 2 critical points. And then in part D, I found out there was a saddle point at -1, -1. For question number 3, I also had some trouble finding f of x and f of y. So I went back and refound those. And then for part D, I had some trouble finding x, y, and lambda. I was a little confused on how to do it, but then when I went back and redid my work, I found y and then substituted that in for x. I found x that way, and then I substituted this back into this equation. I got y, and then I found lambda using this equation up here, f of x, since a lambda was in that equation. And then I found my right values. And then for question number 4, I had a lot of trouble with double integrals, and it's still a topic that is a little hard to me. And I also just have a lot of trouble integrating things that have e in it, especially e raised to an exponent. So for part C, where I was doing the double integral, I didn't integrate correctly. And so when I plugged in my 1 and 0 values, I got something completely different and incorrect. So here I try to integrate it properly and then plugged in the values and then integrated again and then plugged in 1 and -1 to get my right answer. And then for question number 5, again for part C, here I had trouble doing double integrals. And then for part B, describing region R as a rectangular Y region, I forgot that I had to solve for x from my given equations to write it as a rectangular Y region. So I did that and corrected it. And then I had trouble with double integrals, and especially had trouble when the integrals don't give me like solid numbers. So I had 1/2 x squared and I was kind of confused on that. But then another thing I did wrong was writing dy dx, so my order was flipped in my original work, but I fixed that in my corrections. So I try to integrate properly and work through that, and then plug in my values and solve for that. And then I reintegrated and plugged in those values, and then I got my final answer. So I had a lot of trouble on double integrals, and so I need to look back over that. And then other than that, I just made some small errors.